In this episode, I'm going to talk about getting data from Firebase. So I'll start off by getting data once, and then I'll get data in a stream. All the while, I'll convert the data to an object or model using a future. And then I'll show how chaining futures to get dependent data is used. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to go to my Android Studio IDE, which I'm using to edit my Flutter application. I've created a simple application already and pre-configured some of the bits that I'll use in this episode. Now let me go over those pre-configured bits before I get started. So I have a simple application, and this simple application I've just constructed the home page. Now this comes default with a template. So what I did in the home page is I created this scaffolding, and the scaffolding has one item. Now I'm just using the scaffolding to show about how I'm going to deliver the data from Firebase to the widget in the application. So I've just constructed a variable name, to-do name, and I'm going to update this with set state, and it will update when I get the data from Firebase. What I want to do is show off I'm going to get the data from Firebase. So let me scroll down. Okay, here's my model or object, and I'm going to fill this object up with the data from the Firebase. So I have a named constructor from Json. This is a Dart language, syntactic sugar. So I set this key to the key that will be final in this object. And then I'll retrieve the map data, which is going to be then delineated, and then I'll set the name, and if it's empty, well, it's not empty here. If it's null, I'll just make it empty. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down. I've already pre-configured the queries, so I made a class. I could put this in my own library, and I do that in my own application development, but here I just want to do one class, and everything is a main.dart, just to show how the pieces work together. So in this, I have two queries built, and I wrap them up in a future, and this makes it for a nice abstraction to denoodleize my application development, and it makes it easy for me to build a unit test just to test the query, because the data persistence is one of the most important pieces to me. Okay, so to move along, this query, get to do stream, and I tag the stream on my stream queries, and I'll go over that in a little bit more in a moment. I won't explain all the bits here, but just keep in mind, here's a to-do, and then I've already pre-built the query, and I'll show how that's going to be used in a moment. Then I have a get to do, which is going to get the to-do once, and I'm going to use this first, and I'll show that a little bit more in a moment. And then the next pre-configured bit is I have preferences. I want to show this as a dependent future that I'm going to use to get a key from my preferences before I do the Firebase query. And in this case, I'm going to do a little bit of simulation because the get account key is dependent on my login system. In this case, I don't have this tutorial fully wired to do login. So I'm going to simulate when the account key is empty in preferences. I'm just going to add one. Okay, so let me go to the database. This is a real-time database, and right here is my root, and then I have accounts. Here's my account key that I'm going to be using and simulating, and of course I've named the account sandbox. And then within that account there are some to-dos. I have two to-dos, and I'm going to use only one of them in this demonstration, but I could get all of them, and I'll show a little bit more of this behavior in future episodes. Okay, so to get started, what I want to do first is show how I'm going to get the data once. So that means if it was updated on the server, it's only going to get it when the state is initialized for the page. So what would I do to start that off? Well, I'm going to look for the homepage state, and what I want to do is add a method init state, which I'm going to override. And in this init state, I'm going to call Firebase tools, the class path to Firebase to-dos, and then I'm going to get to-do. And what is the to-do item I'm going to get? Remember, I'm going to just fake it here because I'm going to go and get the key of the to-do. So I'm going to click on this so I can actually copy it. So I'm going to get the to-do key here. Oh, actually, is that the same? Okay, so I want to make sure I'm copying the right to-do key. Oops, I got too much there. I'm going to copy the to-do key and then go back to my Firebase query and put in the to-do key. Okay, so the next step, then I want to update the to-do. So if I type in then, I can see it's going to provide the type to-do. And let me just go and look at that the method construction down below. Okay, so let me go to get to do. What is it doing? So get to do is expecting a parameter to do key, and I use that to do key in the child query down below. And what I'm going to do is use a completer, which is a nice way to write a future. A completer allows me to wrap up this widget construction and complete and use a callback pattern, which is really nifty to use with the Firebase query. And let me just walk this method here. So the method has a generic type of to-do. So I'm going to return a future of to-do, and you can see that completer.future is returned. So the first thing is I got to depend on another future. So I wait till this future is retrieved the count key. So what is the count key? So I'm going to go command click and go to the count key, and that is in preferences. And so preferences, I have saved an account key on the login, but I don't have that wired up in this episode. I can set an account key up here and it persists it to the shared preferences. In this case, I return it and it's a future too. So I wait for the instance to return. Then I get the string account key, return the account key. It's going to be empty in this case or null. And so then I just say, okay, just simulate my account key is going to be this. So I just want to say this is going to be a future that has to wait for some other thing to complete, so that it takes some time. So this is all done simply linear steps by saying this is an async method. This is really nice syntactic sugar to have this option and async. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, I also cover this in my future builder episode as well. Okay, so let me go back. I'm walking the get to do. So I'm going to get an account key. I got my account key. I'm waiting for that. So then I say Firebase instance, the way I call it, and I chain the methods together, reference, and then I say for this child accounts, let's just review that. So let me go to the root. So accounts, account key, to-dos, to-do key. So I have accounts, account key, to-dos, to-do key, and I'm only going to get it once. And this is important to note. I'm only going to get it once. Then I'm going to use a callback, and it provides me a data snapshot for generic data. So then I want to convert that in. This is going to be map JSON, and it's a hash map because and the values could be hash map if they're children as well. Then I instantiate the to-do from JSON, the name constructor, and give it the arguments key and value, which come from the data snapshot. So I have a map here, the value. So then I'm going to go to the from JSON. From JSON, then I provide a generic map data, which is a hash map from the JSON data. And then I construct the object down here. That's pretty slick. Now, one of the things about constructing JSON, there's a lot of folks that like to serialize it and bind it and do all this magical stuff to create and persist JSON. I just want to note in this episode, I'm not using any tools. I like to do it this method because, one, I'm handwriting it, and two, it allows me to persist the data as individual values because it's a real-time database. So a lot of times I'm just working with the leaf nodes or the leaf properties of the database, and I don't want to work with objects in whole all over, except for in the case I may want to do that when I'm rendering the items in a list. So in this case, I keep it quite granular, but feel free to look into those type of methods. I won't cover that in this episode. I kind of like to keep it simple. Okay, so back to the getting the to-do once. So this is a future. It's a return of future. I'm not going to call wait here because I like to use this callback pattern. So I say then, and so then I'm going to say then, and it's a to-do. But instead of doing that, I want to use a method. So I'm going to go like this, and this is nice. I'm going to terminate the line. So I'm going to say update, make a private method with an underscore, update to do, and then I'm going to hit Alt-Enter to get the auto assist up, and then I want to say a method, create method. Right, so I'm going to create method, and it creates it right down at the bottom. So I'm going to remove the return type because the return type's useless here. So in this case, I want to say update to do, and then it now has a to do value. And so how do I update the to do name? So let's go var name equals to value.name, just to show simply how I'm going to get that data from the value. Okay, so what I want to do next is update the to-do name. So I'm going to go set state and use the anonymous function, and then I'll do a little bit of formatting, and I'll go, what is it, underscore to-do name is equal to name. So I could just reference the value here, but I just wanted to give an example of what I was looking at. So in this case, let's just save it. I'm going to go command save, and it should update. If it doesn't, I'll just hit the run button from the beginning because I did set this up before I recorded. Okay, there I go, dishes. Now that is perfect. So let's say I went to the database and updated dishes to dishes 2. You can see that it doesn't update. So if I rerun this application and get it to reinitialize a state, so hot reload doesn't initialize the state again. If I run from the beginning, it will reinitialize the state. So I have dishes 2. So that works perfect. So that gets the data once. So what if I wanted to get the data every time I updated it in the database? Well, I want to use a stream which provides a real-time connection that only gets disposed when the widget is disposed. So let me see how I could write that. So I'm going to comment out the get to do so we can compare that with the stream. So I'm going to go Firebase to-dos and go to that class. In that class, I've already pre-configured the get to do stream, and it wants a key and on data. So what are those? So I know what the key is because it's the same as the other one. I'm going to add that, and then on data, I'll cover that in a moment. Let's look at this method, get to do stream, and what is it? So command click, I go down, and I can see that it returns a future that has an event. And this is going to be important to look at here in a moment because this is the handler registration I'm going to use to say when it's disposed, I need to get rid of the subscription so I don't create a memory leak. So it wants a parameter, to do key, and then a method interface or definition, or this could be a type def as well, but this is a type def inline. So I think of it as the function interface, how I need to construct my function to use this as a callback. So it's basically going to call back and provide me with a to-do when I'm done calling my data. So here's a dependent future, get account key, just like before. I get the simulated account key. I wait for that. Then I construct my database query, and you can see I return a subscription, and I pass that to the caller. Now this is going to be used to cancel the subscription here in a moment. So in this instance, I say accounts, account key. Let me scroll down a little bit here, and it matches the once data. You can see right down here, instead of getting data once, I get on value. This on value I can listen to. What I do here is wrap this up in a nice future because this allows me to abstract my query into a separate class so I don't have it noodled with my application development or model or view. I can abstract it out so I can see all my queries in one place in another class. And often I'll make my own library for each class. Okay, so then I have accounts, account key, to-dos. I get the to-do key. I listen for events in this case, and when I hear an event, I say, okay, since I want the to-do object, what I do is just parse the map data, just like the get to-do, and return it in on data. Okay, so let me go up and finish the wiring. Okay, so I'm going to go up, and the first thing I want to do is complete this get to do stream, and the callback, since it's a future, I'm returning the subscription. So I either go then, and what I want to do is implement or return or get a reference of the subscription. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go then, and then I'm going to go, it's a function. I'm going to do it inline here. So stream subscription. Okay, subscription. Okay, auto assist. There we go. And I'm going to go S for subscription. And then I'm going to set this. Let's just do a line return because it's going over and clipping. I want to do a line return, and I'm going to say this is going to be set to, let's see, okay, what should I call my subscription? So I'll go subscription, and what I'm going to name it is to do. Okay, so the next step is I've got to create this variable, but before I do that, I can't forget to set it, so that equals S. And I can forget to set that because I'm doing this a little bit in reverse order here. So let me just define that, declare it at the top, var. Okay, instead of var, I'm going to use the type stream subscription is then subscription to do, and that should be declared. So I return a reference to the subscription. So what will I use that for? So when the widget is disposed, I want to cancel the subscription so I don't create a memory leak. So let's just add this disposed method, disposed, auto assist there, autocomplete, and remove the comments. And what I want to do is if not null, if the subscription to do is not null, I want to cancel it. Subscription to do, then I want to cancel it. So this means when the widget is disposed, I can no longer update any contents in it. Okay, so the next step is to replace update to do with onData. So that's going to call the same method as onData. So, and it will return the to do. So let's test that. So I'm going to run it from the beginning to reinitialize the state. I can't hot reload and reinitialize the state because I added something to here in this case. So I reinitialize it. So let's check the database, go to the database, and I'm going to change the value in the database and see what happens. Enter. Okay, it updated. I can see dishes now instead of dishes 2. Dishes are dirty. Enter. It updates. This is so fun to do when you're actually designing an application. Firebase makes it so simple to wire up a real-time update. Okay, so that includes getting data in 2 ways. Today in this episode, 1, I get the data once when the app is initialized, and 2, I get the data as a stream, which listens for updates in the database and then updates the state in my widget. So real quick, I'm going to review this. So I have a simple application which has a home page. This home page is just a simple construction to show off how I get the data in 1 or 2 ways. I have a list view that has an item that can be updated, and this list tile's title is updated when the data is retrieved. Okay, so I'm going to review the to-do. Let's go down and review it real quick. Okay, so I have my Firebase to-dos class, which has 2 queries. This makes a nice abstraction for me to keep all my queries in one location. And I can either get a stream or get it once. I mark my methods that I use as a stream. I put a stream on it because it differentiates the stream versus the once methods. That's just my technique of how I differentiate it. You can name it however you want to. So in the get to do once, I use a completer, which makes a nice abstraction to use a future and then use a callback pattern. And I chain my query together. I get the data snapshot. I return that value, which is a mapped value, and I parse that data and delineate into the object I want to construct and initialize, which is then the to-do object. And I pass that back to the caller of the get to-do. And I go up that to how I call that. I go Firebase to-dos. I reference the class, and then because it's a static method, get to-do, and I give it the key, and I say then, and I pass it to my update to do method, which is down here. Update to do takes the to do value object, and then I set the state, and it updates the display. Pretty slick. So the stream is a little bit different because it has stream subscription, and I keep a reference to this. So when I dispose the widget, I can cancel it, which then prevents a memory leak because then it no longer can update after I dispose the widget. So let's look at the to-do stream. This is nifty as well. I like this method. Okay, so I have a return type of stream subscription, and it's a future. So I get to do stream, I use a key, and return data in this function here. So on data to do. So I wait for this future to complete. I chain futures together. There is another method you can use as future.wait, which is slick, but I don't use it in this case because I linearly walk the steps. I depend on a count key to use the query. So this is an excellent method or pattern to use when you need dependent bits or the dependent values to build your query. So then I take my reference and I get chained methods together to get my query, which is the same way as once, but I return the on value or use the on value. I listen for update events, and when the update event comes in, I pass that back to on data to do. Okay, so if I go back up, the last time I get the stream, and then I use the callback to say, then the subscription, which is passed as S, and then I set that to do in my class, and then I destroy it with cancel when it's disposed. So that's one or two ways to get data from the database. Thanks for watching today. Follow me for more tips and tricks on Flutter and Firebase, and I'll catch you later.